Hey guys, Benji here. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about how to talk to a spouse about a porn habit or addiction. Now, and I know this is a huge question. We're going to be talking about the exact steps that you can take today to go about bringing up this conversation in a healthy and productive way, I promise. And it's just going to leave you feeling more confident and more assured about how to move forward in regards to your partner's porn habit and addiction. If you're new here, my name is Benji Uyama, and I help men turn their marriages and turn their relationships from dying relationships into truly beautiful and thriving relationships like I have myself. I've been doing this work professionally for the last 10 years. I've been married myself for the last 11 years almost, and we have 2 kids. And this channel is everything that I know about how to help men create really beautiful relationships and especially gain sexual integrity and overcome porn habit and addiction, because I found that this is truly one of the biggest roadblocks when it comes to creating intimacy and a really a thriving relationship, especially within a committed relationship. So I'm going to give you the 3 steps to having conversations with your spouse. I'm going to assume for the sake of this video that you're a wife, you're a woman who is trying to help your husband overcome porn habit and addiction, because that's the most common. However, if you're the vice versa situation, this also applies. So the first one, the order of these steps is actually very important. I'll explain why. The first thing is you need to get educated about the nature of pornography, about addiction, and in particular about your partner's specific situation. And the reason education is really important is because, generally speaking, what spouses, especially women, tend to do when they react to or hear about a spouse's porn habit or addiction is they tend to react in 2 different extremes, right? The 2 extremes is on one end of the spectrum, you have a spouse who reacts very negatively and with a lot of volatility and anger and outrage, and it's kind of like, oh, I want a divorce immediately. I think this is absolutely disgusting. How would you do this to me? That kind of reaction, which is very, very normal and understandable as well. On the other side of the spectrum, you have kind of the more ignorant and more like, oh, okay, I didn't really know that porn is a thing. Don't do that again, kind of just playing it. Both of these extremes are not helpful at all. In fact, it can actually be detrimental if you react with those kinds of extreme negativity, because they're dealing with a heavy addiction. It's nothing personal against you. It's something that they're struggling with and don't really know how to proceed, and maybe for even many years or many decades have been struggling with this in silence. So on the other side, it's not helpful to respond with ignorance or just kind of a carefree attitude, because it's not helpful to somebody who has an addiction to have a partner who just doesn't think it's a big deal or care. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that the healthy medium, the healthy alternative, the third option is always education. You can always be educated about pornography, understand why it's so harmful, understand the nature of the addiction, understand how prevalent it actually is, and realizing that this is very common. I mean, the reason I'm making this video, guys, is because this is one of the most common questions I get from particularly women. Is my spouse, my husband is addicted to porn. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to bring this up, and I don't know how to have conversations. It's very common. So the reason education is critical is so that you can be informed, and you can come into these conversations with an informed mentality and not in a reactive mentality, right? Informed, not reactive. So that's why number 1 is important. So to get educated, you should really check out the other videos here on this channel, because I really go more into the addiction side of it, of pornography, and helping men kind of come to a healthy place regards to this. And a lot of videos here about pornography itself. So you can do that. And once you do feel a certain level of understanding about it, then you should go on to have a conversation. Now, the way to have a conversation with your partner is actually not as you might think. You should just ask him straight up. You need to just ask him. And I know that's scary, and I know that part of you might feel like you don't want to offend him, or you want to upset him or anger him. I guarantee you, I promise you, as a man who has been through this myself, and as a man who has helped so many men go through this, it's infinitely more helpful in the long run if you just ask and be bold enough to ask the question, are you struggling with a porn habit? You can even bring it up nicely. I was watching this video by this guy named Benji on YouTube, this cool dude, and he was talking about pornography and his own struggles. And I was just wondering if that's something you're dealing with. If you're having this conversation for the first time, if you're having an ongoing conversation about this porn habit, just ask him straight up. Ask him, how's your relationship with porn going? That's a good question to ask. How's your relationship with pornography going? You can do it nicely. You can do it while you are walking. Personally, I recommend that Men typically like to have conversations when they're not looking straight into the eyes of their wife about their porn habit, but when they're either walking together outside or when they're driving, when they're not, just having too much face-to-face and is kind of a little too confrontational for a lot of men. So having that kind of conversation is a way to kind of ease into it. But just the point here is just talk about it. Just ask the question, have the conversation. And many times it is challenging in the beginning to have these conversations because they feel defensive and they feel maybe attacked, or they feel, because it is an addiction, they might even deny it, especially if it's a heavy addiction. Addicts make the best liars, as we say. So it's really important just to have a conversation. I promise you, even if it's challenging, you have to have the conversation, even if it's difficult. And I've seen so many times that even if it's challenging, people that have these conversations because they need to be had are way better off down the road. Long term, you have to think about your marriage long term. You have to think about your relationship a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. I promise you, I guarantee you, having these conversations now, even if he doesn't like it, even if he responds negatively, if you can do it with grace and with love and compassion, and not, either volatile or just ignorant, but really from an educated and informed perspective, then I promise you down the road, it will be better for him and for you and for your relationship as a whole. In fact, very interestingly, a lot of the guys in my group have told me that they like when somebody asks them how their porn habit is. They like it. And sometimes men are craving for it. Sometimes men are craving for their wife to ask them, how's your relationship with porn? Because that is infinitely easier than having to find the time and space to talk, to mention something that's so secretive and so gross, and something we're just really not proud of, and being so vulnerable. It's just a lot easier to have somebody ask you. And I promise you that if you have this conversation, it might be a little challenging, but in most cases, the most likely scenario is that he will be able to grow from it, and he will be able to get help. And that's where the goal is. The goal is to get him to get help and support, and to eventually come here and check out the videos and subscribe, right? And the third step in this process of having conversations with your husband about his porn use is to open up the conversation, open up the space for more conversations to be had about his addiction. This is really important, especially when you're just getting started and having these conversations. Maybe you've had a few. Before you end the conversation, or one conversation, make a plan to check in every so often, so that he knows, once a month, for example, or once a week, that we're going to have this conversation. Once a week after church, or when we go on our date night, or at the beginning of the month, we're going to have a conversation about how his relationship with porn is. It doesn't have to be a daily accountability process. In fact, it's actually not recommend. I really don't recommend having that you, the spouse, is the accountability partner, the primary point person, accountability partner for your husband's addiction. And the reason is that because of your different genders, there's a different understanding. If you're not an addict, you haven't been through the experience that he's going through right now, and also there's just a lot more personal, emotional investment in the relationship for you to be able to help him in an ongoing way, and not to feel offended, or for you to take it personally as his habit. So it's actually very difficult and can be harmful for you to be the primary point person and accountability partner. And sometimes men do like to have their spouse, their wife, as accountability partner. I don't recommend that. I really I don't recommend it at all, because it's just a lot of strain on the relationship, and it can actually be more beneficial for him to have someone like me, or kind of like an older brother figure or mentor figure in his life, father figure, be his accountability partner, to help him go through the process, because they've been through it themselves. That is way more valuable than adding more unneeded strain and stress to your relationship, which is already going under strain. And in most cases, it's extremely hard for a wife to be the main support person for their husband. So I really recommend that he has to get help. He has to check out this YouTube channel to get started, and eventually seeking help and recovery himself. All right. If this video was helpful at all, those are the 3 steps. Please give it a smash the like button so that more people can find it, and it just helps the video get spread around to other women like you that might be going through this situation. I'd really appreciate it. And you can consider checking out the other videos on this channel to get yourself educated and in the know. Thanks for watching. Take care.